Well, I get to sit next to Ellen Datlow, who I love, and have not had the chance to spend anywhere near as much time with her as I would love to. So that's what I'm looking forward to. The other nominees, I read all their stories, and so I didn't prepare a speech because I'm like, okay, I'll just come for the party and applaud the winners. I don't expect to be the guy taking home the trophy, but they are beautiful trophies, aren't they? So like that.
The actual award is called an Usher.
It's called an, oh, cool.
It's built after
The House of Usher, yeah. That was one of my favorite Roger Corman movies. I think that was one of the first ones he did. It was the first one he did in color. Scared the crap out of me. Corman was in the groove for a while. It was like from House of Usher until I guess about Comedy of Terror. Remember that great moment is here's Vincent Price and the Raven flies in and he's going and he starts doing the whole tell me, blah blah blah, and the Raven goes in Peter Lorre's voice, how the hell should I know? I'm only a raven. Oh, that was a wonderful moment. It was 1968. And there was the WorldCon was going to be in Berkeley, and the same committee was supposed to have done WesterCon, so they combined it. So a group in LA put on a not WesterCon called FunCon. And I went to it, and I met Harry Harrison and Harlan Ellison and Bob Silverberg, and I forget who else. It was a big crowd. And, Robert Bloch. And I have to tell you, Robert Bloch was one of the funniest, kindest, gentlest, sweetest guys. And, he said, he's the guy who said it first, I have the heart of a small child. I keep it in a jar on my desk. And it was hard to believe that this guy was a master of horror, because in person he was such a charmer and a great Toastmaster and a funny guy. And I miss him a lot. He left us way too young. And Bob Bloch was, I think, as much of a high point as it was to meet everybody else. I think Bob Bloch just charmed everybody so much. I think he was the high point of my first convention. My story, Night Train to Paris, was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award. Caught me totally by surprise. I was in Italy 2 years ago, and for a Star Trek convention, and then I stayed in Italy and went to Venice, and then I was going to go to the south of France and then work my way up to Paris. Well, I got to Milan, and there's no train to the south of France. There's only a night train to Paris. And it was a kind of a boring ride, but I was sleeping, but every so often I'd wake up and look out the window, and here's this gray, ghostly landscape of Paris at night, not Paris, but France at night, where here's farms and little towns and just countryside, and it's all rolling by, and it was kind of spooky and kind of beautiful at the same time. And I was in Paris for 4 or 5 days, and I started writing. And I wrote all about my experiences up to getting on the train, and I had this idea of this thing stalking the train. And by the time I got to London, and I was staying with some friends in London, I finished the story and emailed it to Gordon Van Gelder. And the first half of the story is pretty much what I had lived through, and the second half of the story is my mind went, what if all this went wrong? And I'm deliberately not telling the story here. And as I'm typing the story, I knew what my last line was going to be, and I got there and typed something else instead that sent a chill up my spine. It's, oh my God, that's so scary. And I sent it off to Gordon Van Gelder while I was still in London, and he normally only wants printed manuscripts, but I emailed him. He says, you can email me that one. And by the time I got home from London, there was a check waiting for me. He had bought it right away, and it was published. Night Train to Paris was published in February of last year in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. And I thought, this is a charming little story. I like it a lot. I'm proud of it. It's a little scary story, and I forgot about it. Next thing, a couple months ago, I get an email, just, can you confirm that your story was first published here and here? And say, yeah, that was it. And then I get a note, you're on the ballot for the Bram Stoker Award. And I thought, well, how did that happen? Because I don't I know this sounds weird for a writer to say. I don't pay too much attention to awards anymore. Mostly it's like, what's going to happen next in the keyboard? And I don't go to a lot of conventions, and I do paid speaking appearances, yeah, but I don't go to a lot of conventions, and I don't pay attention to the awards process. So it's like, whoa, I got nominated? That is so cool, because that was not on my bucket list. It's like, I don't write a lot of horror. The crap that came down on me in 1969, I grew up reading a lot of horror. I really did, but the crap that came down in 1969, nothing scares me anymore. I mean, for something to scare me, it has to be really, I don't even know there's a word for it. It's something unknown and unmanageable and unnameable. And the only horror stories I've written, I can think of 3, maybe 4, I never identify what it is that is stalking the hero, because to me that's scary. But almost anything else I've read, the scariest thing I've ever written was The Martian Child, because that's about being a dad, about raising a kid, about having the custody of another human life and trying to do right. That, to me, that's scarier than anything I've read. It is like, oh my God, what if I screw it up? And I'll spend the rest of my life apologizing to the families of the victims, you know. So, but every so often there's this, something occurs to me that is really, I can't explain it, and that it's disturbing to me, so it gets written into a story. I didn't think I was qualified to join until well, you're up for the Stoker Award. Gee, I better join the organization then and support it. But I would say, and if somebody asked me the same question about SFWA, Science Fiction Writers of America, the answer would be the same. It gives you access to your colleagues. It gives you access to information. It gives you access to resources. It gives you access to warnings about people who are unscrupulously taking advantage of writers. To me, and this is the greatest thing about any writers organization, and I'm a member of the Writers Guild of America too, it is the opportunity to meet with other writers, pick their brains, listen to them talk, listen to them share, get a sense of how they approach the process, and learn things. And it's a chance to be a part of a community of people who actually understand what it is to sit alone in a room and talk to yourself all day long. Because really the process of writing is you spend most of the day staring into this light bulb saying, nope, that's not going to work, nope, that's not it, nope, can't do that, no. And the actual opportunity to hang out with other people who understand the true difficulty of finding the right word, the right sentence, the right paragraph, and how to make it flow, how to get there. To me, it's like finding that community of people. Here I am. I'm with my family. I'm with people who understand me, who get me. I can relax and stop having to pretend to be something else. You know, you go out in the real world and you pretend to be normal. And whereas at a convention or at a writers guild meeting, or you can just relax because you know you're among family. And so that's what I would say to any writer who says, why should I join HWA? Is if you want to write horror, hang out with people who write horror. You're going to learn from them. I think, it's from my personal experience, I learned how to write science fiction by hanging out with science fiction writers and listening to what mistakes not to make, what worked, what didn't work. So I got the graduate level course in science fiction from Robert Silverberg and Harlan Ellison and Fred Pohl and Isaac Asimov and Hal Clement and Lester Del Rey, and I could go, Annie McCaffrey, and I'm leaving out at least a dozen more, I should name. So I think the opportunity to hang out with other writers is the greatest graduate school you could go to.